Good evening, and I hope you're well. Tonight's topic is on how much money do I need to get started in property. Now, it depends when you'd have asked me this question, for example. So, if I was asked 10 years ago, I'd have said you need as much money as you can get because that's the only way you can do property. But if you ask me today, how much money do you need to get started in property? Well, the answer really is nothing, zero, because there's a concept which I'm sure you may have heard of, or I assume you may have heard of, which is no money down, which basically is simply is you using other people's money, but using your own knowledge, experience, and expertise to buy property. And I do this quite often, and there's plenty of other people out there, by the way, who are doing this too. Now, those who see this as a foreign concept or a concept which isn't known to them may feel, "Oh, well, how can you buy property without putting any of your own money down? It just doesn't work." Well, let me share with you. I was exactly of the same mindset 5 years ago because logically, as an accountant, to me, it made no sense. Why would somebody else give me money to invest in property and then at the same time give me a share? It's not going to work. So I created more hurdles and objections in my own mind when I initially came across this many years ago, uh, that I agreed in my own mind that this couldn't work. And therefore, guess what? I never made it work. And then I got to a situation where I'd exhausted all of my money in a number of property deals, land deals, option agreements, and I purchased a best part of 12 acres in Lincolnshire. So all of my cash was stuck. I wanted to do more deals. There was only one way to leverage that, which was to use other people's money. So because I had no other choice, I had to explore that particular avenue. And because I had to do that, I made it work. Simple as that. So you don't really need that much money to get started in property. But I think saying you need no money and zero is a bit of an exaggeration because you do need some money because you need to understand how property works. So you need to train yourself up. You need to get educated, and you can do some of that for free. By the way, going on webinars and some free networking events and asking people around you who are in property. But you're gonna have to invest some money and go on training courses, mentoring, buying books, buying programs to learn about how property works. So let's say you had a budget of £3,000 to £5,000, that gets you started and you can cover a lot of the basics. After that, you then, as long as you've got some experience or knowledge of doing deals, there are lots of people out there, by the way, and I get this at least once a week, anywhere from £50,000 going all the way up to £500,000 and beyond. I had a conversation with somebody 2 weeks ago, yeah, and they said, I've got up to £2 million to invest. Can we do no money down deals, i.e., their cash, and I find the deals and I make them happen? So there are lots of people out there who want to invest in property, don't have the time, knowledge, experience, expertise, who want to work with a safe pair of hands, people who've done deals. They will give you the cash to buy the property, and then you can raise finance, or if they've got enough cash, they'll fund the refurb work as well. I'm talking here mainly about commercial conversions or land with or without planning, and you can then start doing lots of deals. So I get at least one a week, and I'm not even asking for it. If you've seen these lives, if you see any of my posts anywhere, I never ask anybody to give me any money because, truth be told, I'm not very comfortable with anybody and everybody giving me money because that comes with responsibility. And if things don't quite work out, then if I don't know that person well, or if there's not a long-standing relationship or a good enough relationship, that makes me feel uncomfortable as an accountant. I just don't feel I could do that too well. And I think managing that particular relationship, if things go wrong, may be quite difficult. So I only work with people who I know reasonably well, and who know me reasonably well, who are going to give me enough space and time to do what I need to do, because the gig with me, and there's no sales pitch here, by the way, but the gig with me is give me your money, I'll do the deal, and in X number of months, you'll then get your money back, or we'll have a property, we'll sell it, and then we'll divvy up the proceeds. So the point being is you can get into property with a very small amount of money, as long as you have some expertise and experience that other people don't have, and then you can leverage your expertise with their capital and get into property and do lots of deals. Now, those of you who don't believe that's possible, I can tell you now, you're never going to do this, by the way, or it's highly unlikely you'll do this. Those of you who believe it is possible are at least going to explore this and find a way of doing it. So it's up to you. There's no sales pitch here. I'm just sharing with you. It works. I've done it numerous times. Right now, I'm doing it 4 times on 4 different property projects. And if I had the time and enthusiasm, I could easily do 6, 8, 10, 12 at any one point. But right now, I've got other business interests, including running an accountancy firm. So doing 10, 12 projects at any one time isn't a priority for me. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. Again, this session, I like all of the sessions, is about engagement. I'll answer your questions the best that I can. If I can't, I'll always come back to you. But I have 3 questions that were sent in to me. The first one is from Francis Choi, who says, thanks for making this video, because she's asking me a question on YouTube. She's saying, is leasing the same as contract hire? And is it best to use contract hire if you are a sole trader or LLP? So I'm going to make it really I'm going to simplify it for you, Francis, without going into the different financial instruments in terms of leasing. So the 2 options you have is you can either buy an asset or you can lease an asset. But and in terms of leasing, you've got 2 options. You can have a lease where you purchase the asset, or you can have a lease where you hand it back. So in very simple terms, contract hire is where you hire a vehicle for an extended period, usually minimum of 6 months, but most companies do 12 months, 24 months, 36, 48, so on and so forth. So you use the vehicle, and so basically you're leasing it. At the end, you give the car back, and as long as you're within the agreed mileage, let's say if it's 10,000 miles per year and you've got it for 2 years, as long as you haven't exceeded 20,000 miles and there's no damage on the car, you hand the car back and you go your way, they go their way. The other option you have is if you want to buy the asset outright, and you could use hire purchase, where you use funding to buy the car, and once you've paid the funding off, the car becomes yours. And the one in the middle is where you lease a vehicle and you make the payments, and let's say after 2 or 3 years, you made all your lease payments, and then you can purchase the car. So that's how, in a very simple nutshell, how that works. In terms of, are you better using contract hire if you're a sole trader or limited LLP? It just depends on the kind of car you're buying, whether it's brand new, whether it's second hand, what your budget is, because sometimes there's some really good leasing deals. So I'm one of those guys who uses contract hire, have done since 2005, and I will look around at least 6 to 9 months before I'm looking to change my car, and I do it every 2 years usually, sometimes more often. And sometimes there are really good deals offered by dealerships. So for example, at some point, Mercedes may launch a new edition of their one of their cars, let's call it an E-Class, and they might say, we're quite enthusiastic about getting these into the marketplace. So they offer their dealerships large discounts or bigger, better discounts for pushing out more cars. That dealership then will push those discounts through to customers. So you might get a really good deal, say, on an E-Class, just because Mercedes are enthusiastic about getting that car into the UK marketplace, for example. So you need to be looking out for deals. I've seen some fantastic deals on cars, which I could never believe to be true until obviously I inquired and I realized they were really good deals. So you can get, on a good day, a 7 Series BMW book price, I think about 65 grand for £400 plus VAT. I saw a Range Rover SVR list price 90 grand for 650 plus VAT. All sorts of cars, BMW 8 Series for 450 plus VAT. So if you look around, there's some really good deals on a contract hire, and then you need to do the equation, as in, are you better off hiring or are you better off buying? But if you're into second-hand cars, probably buying is going to work out to be cheaper. If you want a brand new car and all the benefits that usually brings, then contract hire usually is very, very competitive, especially if you're not fixated on a particular car. So if you just said you wanted a 4-door saloon and you don't mind what type of car it is, then you can look for good deals, because Sometimes it could be Audi, sometimes it might be BMW, it might be Skoda. As long as you're not fussy, you're okay. If you want a specific car, then you may end up paying more for it because the time you need it might not be the time the best deal is out there. So it just depends on timing. So that's the question from Francis. Simon Roberts is asking the question, and his question is, if a husband and a wife own a furnished letting business, so in our world we usually call it service accommodation, and the business is in both names, and both husband and wife are working through PAYE, and if one of them wishes to use capital allowances for sideways loss relief due to one being a basic rate taxpayer and the other being a high rate taxpayer, can they unevenly report this on their self-assessment form? So the simple answer for you, Simon, and unfortunately I only have bad news for you, is sideways loss relief is not available on furnished holiday lets. So if you make a loss, you have to carry it forward and use it against the profits of that business in the future. From memory, I think that changed in 2011, so best part of 10 years ago. So sideways loss relief will not be available for you. If, however, you were going into a partnership with somebody and you set up a partnership business and you wanted to share the profits unequally, you can do that because the capital share ratio and the profit share ratio are different. So let's say I went into partnership with one of my work colleagues here, and we set up a partnership business. I own 50%, they own 50%. 1 year, they could take 75% of the profits, and I only take 25%, because how we split the profit share, it isn't based on the capital share ratio. However, for husband and wife who own property, the split has to be equal in terms of their ownership. So if, using your example here, Simon, if your partner, husband or wife, or civil partner is earning less than you and is a basic rate taxpayer, and you think they will remain a basic rate taxpayer because let's say they only work part-time, for example, then you're better off saying, when you buy property, give them, let's say, 80% of the share, and you only own 20%, and you can split it that way. You can do it subsequently as well through a Form 17, but you need a deed of trust, and the Form 17 has to be filed within 60 days of having signed the deed of trust. So I hope that helps you, Simon. And the final question is from Irfan. Irfan previously asked a question about quantity surveyors and project managers. So I answered that question for him, and he's saying, are the costs associated with using a quantity surveyor and a project manager tax deductible against profits? And the simple answer for you, Irfan, is yes, you can deduct those costs against your profits, because I assume you're looking to get into developments and you're going to use your own QS and your own project manager, so you can use those expenses or that expense against revenue for tax purposes. So that's those 3 questions covered. Thank you very much for those questions, and thank you very much for joining me on this live here. If you've got any questions on No Money Down, I am more than happy to answer any questions for you based on my own experience of having done quite a few No Money Down deals over the last 5 years. From next week onwards, the Facebook Lives will be at 6 o'clock and not 7 o'clock on a Wednesday. I'm running a webinar in a couple of weeks' time. The link is up there, bit.ly/Shaz webinar. And I'm going to, believe it or not, talk to you about a No Money Down deal where we bought a property and it was a 100% no money down deal for me. Ended up with 21 flats. I'll show you how that deal worked behind the scenes, what worked well, what didn't work well, how we refinanced, and how it all worked out. It's an incredible story. And if you doubt No Money Down, by the way, trust me, join me in the webinar. After I talk you through the whole thing, I'm confident you'll at least get to a place where even if you don't want to explore it for different reasons, you'll at least feel No Money Down is a concept that works, and you can make it work as long as you're enthusiastic about it. So that's the webinar. I'll see you next Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Until then, bye for now.